This video is designed to promote the understanding of eye movement desensitization and reprocessing therapy or EMDR for use with post-traumatic stress disorder or also known as PTSD. In the first session, we will discuss the PTSD in DSM-5 in terms of what is the PTSD, why does it happen, and what are diagnostic criteria. What is PTSD? Trauma and stressor can develop after the exposure to an extreme traumatic event. According to DSM-5, a traumatic event that threatens or caused by a serious harm, injuries, or sexual violation or death to a cause to death to self or another person. Traumatic event can also directly be experienced by witnesses or also by experience throughout repeated exposure to the detail. DSM-5 include traumatic event on the following: the violent acts such as physical attack or domestic violence, unexpected dangerous event such as natural disaster or accidents, serious or life-threatening illness or injuries, exposure to the war, childhood age sexual, physical or emotional abuse. And the last one is the unexpected death of friend or relative. Diagnosing PTSD. PTSD is a complex diagnosis with symptoms are grouped into 4 clusters, which is intrusions, avoidance and numbing, negative alterations, and also arousal and reactivity. According to the diagnosis of PTSD, required one or more intrusive memory symptom, one or more avoidant numbing symptom, 2 or more negative alteration symptom, or 2 or more arousal symptom. The intrusion symptom including the 5 following symptoms: distressing memories, distressing dream, dissociative reaction, which is flashback about the event, the intense distress at the exposure to the cues, and psychological reaction to the cues. Meanwhile, avoidance symptoms are avoidance of distressing memories about the event, avoidance of external reminder about the event. In the first session, we will discuss the PTSD in DSM-5 in terms of what is the PTSD, why does it happen, and what are diagnostic criteria. Arousal and reactivity consists 6 symptoms: irritable behavior and angry outbursts, such as using a physical or words to others in harshly, self-destructive behavior, hypervigilance, exaggerated start response, problem with concentrations, and sleep disturbance. DSM-5 include traumatic event on the following: the violent acts such as physical attack or domestic violence, unexpected dangerous event such as natural disaster or accidents, serious or life-threatening illness or injuries, exposure to the war, childhood age sexual, physical or emotional abuse. And the last one is the unexpected death of friend or relative. What is EMDR? EMDR is an integrative psychotherapy approach that has been intensively researched and proven effective for the treatment of trauma. EMDR is a set of standardized protocols that incorporates elements from many different treatment approaches. To the date, EMDR therapy has helped millions of people of all ages relieve many types of psychological distress. According to Suzanne and Melinda, 2011 stated that EMDR, integrative element or cognitive behavioral therapy, with bilateral eye movement or other form of rhythmic of left-right stimulations. The key element of EMDR is dual stimulation, which is during the treatment. The client are asked to think or talk about memories, triggers, and painful emotion. During the stimulus, the client have to focus on the therapist's moving finger or another form of bilateral stimuli. In a typical EMDR therapy session, client focus on traumatic memories and associate negative emotions and belief while tracking the therapist's moving finger with client eyes as it moves back and forth across the client field of vision. Other forms of external stimuli that may be used in EMDR therapy include bilateral tactile sensations and sound. For instance, the alternating hand tap or chime that pan back and forth from ear. The EMDR therapy was developed by psychologist named Dr. Francine Shapiro in year 1987. She made the chance of observations that eye movement can reduce the intensity of disturbing thought under certain conditions. She was studied this effect significantly and in 1989, she reported success using EMDR to treat victims of trauma in the Journal of Traumatic Stress. Since that, EMDR has developed and evolved through the contributions of therapists and researchers all over the world. Nowadays, EMDR is a set of standardized protocol that incorporates elements from many different treatment approaches. EMDR therapy is suitable for children, adolescents, and adults who have experienced trauma, PTSD, post-traumatic stress, phobias, or other mental disorder. Usually, treatment with child or adolescent client will integrate play therapy or other auspicious treatment tools. Meanwhile, with an adult client, usually integrated with talking therapy. Now let's discuss components of the model. The effectiveness therapy required one or more sessions for the therapist to understand the nature of the problem faced by the client in deciding either the EMDR therapy is an appropriate treatment by discussing the method with the client. Once both has agreed that EMDR is appropriate, then the actual EMDR may begin. A typical session may last from 60 to 90 minutes, but the level of previous trauma will determine how many treatment sessions are necessary. By may use a standard talking therapy as a adjunctive therapy with a separate therapist or as a treatment all by itself. EMDR therapy is an effective therapy that often helps people feel better quickly by work through the entire eight-phase process with a qualified EMDR therapist to ensure the most beneficial and lasting result, just like stated below. Phase 1 is history and treatment planning. The first session will likely involve the therapist talking and initial client history. The therapist will probably ask the client about the problem, behavior, and fear that have brought the client into the therapy. However, one difference between EMDR and many other therapies is that client would not be asked to discuss the traumatic event in detail. The emotion and physical sensations surrounding the event are what is important, not the detail about the event itself. Once the therapists have developed a treatment plan for the client based on this initial assessment, the process of EMDR can begin. The second phase is preparation checklist. In this stage, involve the therapist teaching client of some self-care technique so that in the future, client can handle strong emotion that may arise during or between the sessions. EMDR places a strong emphasis on self-care. In this stage, also important for developing a sense of trust with the therapist. The therapist will explain more to client about the theory of EMDR and talk about the expectation in the following session. Meanwhile, the third phase is assessment. In this phase, lays the groundwork for the actual EMDR therapy session. The therapist will ask the client to identify three things, which is a specific scene or picture the best represent the target event. Client probably will have already discussed the target event in the first session, but at this point, client will clarify the visual image of the trauma that client experienced, to including associated emotion and bodily sensation. Second one is a negative belief about oneself that associate with the traumatic event, such as I am helpless, I am worthless, and I am a bad person. The third thing is a positive belief that client would rather believe about oneself. This positive belief should reflect what is appropriate in the present. For example, perhaps the client survived an assault with the subsequent negative belief, I am in danger. The client might replace it with the positive belief, I am safe now. Once the visual image and negative and positive belief has identified, client will be asked to rate how strong client feel the positive thought to be true by using the Validity of Cognition VOC scale of 1 to 7, which is 1 is being completely false and 7 being completely true. Client in this stage, client also be asked to describe the disturbing emotion that client feel during focus on the visual image and rate their intensity on the 11-point subjective unit of disturbance by using USD scale, which is 0 meaning the emotion is not distressing at all, and 10 meaning it is the worst feeling client have ever had. Client will also be asked to identify the location in the body where client feel physical sensation when client think about the trauma. Meanwhile, in phase 4 until 6, which is the working process, this stage also known as a post-trauma because one complete the first 3 phases of the EMDR therapy, the working process of the trauma begins. In this stage of 4 until 6, therapists will help client recall target image while leading the client through series of rapid eye movement or alternating bilateral audio or tactile stimulation and or combination thereof. Furthermore, with client attention split between the internal image of concentrating on and the external stimuli of the therapist's moving finger, client would able to experience the distressing memory while remaining grounded in the present, enabling client to process and reframe the trauma. Then, therapists will also monitor the intensity of client symptom between sessions to ensure that progress is being made and maintained. According to the Emdr network, reprocessing a single trauma is generally accomplished within 3 sessions. If treatment takes longer, clients should still see some improvement within the trauma time. Let's go more explanation about the following spaces. We look at phase 4, which is desensitization. During the desensitization phase, client will pay attention to all the negative belief and disturbing emotion and bodily sensation that comes up as focus on the target image while following the therapist's finger back and forth with client eyes. Client will be asked to take note of all their reaction to the processing, either is good, bad or neutral, also including any new insight, associations or emotion experience. After each set of rapid eye movement, the therapist will check in the client and assess the level of disturbance regarding the target image. During this process, client will continue to digest or process the feeling, images, and belief that occur in relation to the trauma target. The desensitization phase continues until the client distress level as measured by SUD scale is reduced to 0 or 1. Then in phase 5, also known as installation phase, client will be asked to focus on the positive belief that client has identified to replace the old negative belief about the trauma. As in phase 4, client will concentrate on the mental image while stimulously tracking the therapist's finger with client eyes. The goal is to strengthen the positive belief or self-statement until the client accepts it as a fully true. After each set of rapid eye movement, the therapist will ask the client to rate the positive belief on the 7-point VOC scale, which gives the therapist concrete measure of how client progressing. The installation phase is complete when clients are able to accept the positive belief at a level of 7, completely true. The uniqueness about EMDR is how rapidly new belief about the self and interpretations of the trauma replace all belief. New possibilities emerge that were never before considered. These new insights are used as the starting point for the next step of eye movement, continually helping clients to process the trauma in healthier and more. In phase 6, the next phase is to focus on any lingering physical sensation. After replacing negative beliefs surrounding the trauma with healthier and positive belief, the therapist will ask the client to think about the baseline target while scanning the body of client from head to toe. Looking for residual tension, any bodily tension or uncomfortable physical sensation are then targeted with bilateral stimulations until they are resolved. The EMDR network emphasizes on positive self-belief by belief on more than just an intellectual level. This base considered successful if client able to think or talk about the baseline target without feeling of any body tensions. The following space is a closure. One of the goals of an EMDR session is help client leave feeling better than client at first meeting in the therapy session. In case client would be able to finish working through the target trauma in a particular session. The therapist will lead the client go through a variety of relaxation techniques to help client bring back into emotional equilibrium. The therapist will also prepare the client that may experience between sessions. For instance, disturbing image, thought, and emotion may arise during the week as client continues to process the trauma. Client also will be asked to keep a journal of these negative memories, thought, which will help client distance themselves from the disturbance and give the client new target for future therapy sessions. The therapist will also review the visualization technique and relaxation exercise that client use to maintain emotional balance between the session. The final phase is re-evaluation. Every new session begins with a re-evaluation of the client progress. Firstly, client will be asked to focus on any target that client already pre-processed. The therapist will review the client response in terms of checking to see either the client have maintained the positive result. The therapist may also ask the client feeling about the previously treated target and review any disturbance that's come up between sessions. Based on these re-evaluations, the therapist will decide whether the client can move on to new target, have to revisit all target for additional reprocessing and iterations.
Okay, so what memory would you like to work on today?
I'm going to work on memory on an ex-girlfriend.
Yeah.
When I was 18, when we split up, I was really upset.
Yeah.
It was the first time being in a proper, very intense relationship when I was 18. Lovely girl. When we split up, I was really upset for a long time.
Okay.
It took me about 2 years to go.
How distressing would that memory be to you?
9 maybe.
Fuck,
I thought that for a long time.
Okay. So we'll start the processing now. I'll tune you into what to start with, and then as we do a set of eye movements, or we might do taps, or we might do tones, just notice what comes up for you. Just be curious and just notice. And sometimes things will change, or they may not. You may notice other images, other thoughts, other feelings, other body sensations. Other memories may come up, and other times you may not be aware of anything but just the eye movements or the taps or the tones. And there's no right or wrong response, and try not to judge whether something should or should not be happening. Just notice whatever comes up and report back to me after I stop. So I'd like you to bring up that image and those negative words, I'm lost. Just notice in your body where you feel that. Yeah, okay. Okay, and just notice. What's your distress rating for that out of 10? When you think about that now. So 10 is highest level of distress. And 0 is lowest.
What, 0, 1?
0 or 1. Okay. Well, could I get you to close your eyes and just focus on that memory again? And just place yourself in that memory. Okay, what did you notice?
Just going through it again. Yeah, it feels okay.
Yeah, okay, just notice that. Let's just try some tapping, just because a different way of doing it, and some other stuff can come up from doing this.
Yeah.
Often people can get more kind of images. So I'm going to get you to put your hands just on your knees like that, and if you could just close your eyes, and I want you to go to that point, the last thing you notice, that it's okay to love someone. If you could just notice that, and I'm just going to start into the tapping. Just notice what comes up. Doing well, just keep noticing. Just old memories. Doing really well. Just old memories. Just notice. Okay, so can you visualise that memory again, and we'll start processing again with that memory?
Yeah.
Okay, do you want hand movements or tapping?
Tapping.
Tapping, yeah, okay. What did you get?
It's okay.
Yeah. What's the distress rating when you think about memory now?
It's okay.
Yeah, if you were to rate it, 0 being no disturbance at all, 10 being highest?
0.
0. Okay. Okay, so when you think about the original incident now, how true do the words "I am strong" feel to you out of 7? 7 is completely true.
Oh, really? Pretty strong.
Yep, yep. Okay, out of 7?
6.
Okay. Just hold those words together when you think about that incident. Think about the incident and the words "I am strong." What did you notice?
More relief.
Yeah, just notice that. Right.
More relief.
Yeah, just notice that. Okay, and how true does that feel? Out of 7?
10.
Okay, just notice that. And in relation to the actual thing that we're working on, the original memory, how are you feeling about that now?
Good.
Yeah? Do you feel that that got processed in today's session?
Yeah. Yeah, gotcha.